Waking from the Trance, Session 2. Tantra, Intellect, with Stephen Wolinsky.
I would like to continue to go through an overview quantum psychology with specific references to the context and where quantum psychology came from, and hopefully offer some exercises that will be helpful in experiencing quantum psychology. So quantum psychology with the context of Advaita Vedanta and utilizing quantum physics goes further into using also Kashmir Shaivism, or Tantric Yoga, and also to Buddhism. Now, when I say Tantric Yoga, what most people immediately assume is sexuality. Actually, in Northern Kashmiri Tantric Yoga, the classic text is called the Vijnana Bhairav. The Vijnana Bhairav has 112 yoga tantras, or dharnas, or practices in Tantric Yoga. Just so we're clear, only one of those 112 is sexual. And I bring that up at every workshop because most people immediately go, Tantra, sex. But actually, only 1% of it is having sex with somebody. And the exact quote is, if at the moment of orgasm you could become introverted, which means turn your attention around and focus on the energy itself, you would experience spanda, or the divine pulsation. Unfortunately, for obvious marketing reasons around the world, Tantric Yoga is sold as sexuality when it's less than 1% of Tantric Yoga. So, quantum psychology uses many approaches which are also tantric in nature, and specifically from the Vijnana Bhairav. So, what is Tantric Yoga? Most spirituality is context dependent. What that means is, if you went to India, and I had the opportunity to live there for many years, what you'll notice is it's hot, the weather is terrible, the food is terrible. You have almost 1 billion people living in an area that would include from the east coast of the United States, New York, to the Mississippi River. So you have an overcrowding, polluted, seriously physically tough situation. So naturally, Vedanta, or not this, please not this, would be very appropriate. Tantric Yoga, or Northern Kashmiri Tantric Yoga, is from Kashmir. It's probably one of the most beautiful areas in the world. And so naturally, their yoga is not this, Their yoga is and this, and this, and this. The food is good, the weather is good. So naturally, you want to include everything. So it is context dependent. The simplest way to describe Tantric Yoga, which is defined as an expansion of knowledge, or the Tantra Asana says, one rises by that which one falls. In other words, if I have an incredible amount of anger, or incredible amount of sadness, or incredible amount of fear, if I'm able to experience it as made of energy and allow it to do what it does without any intention of getting rid of it, then it automatically transmutes itself. But again, I'll get into this a little more detail with exercises as we go along. Another important part of quantum psychology, of course, is Buddhism. Now, Buddha was a Hindu. Now, that's a big deal. Buddha was a Hindu because everybody who lived in India at that time was a Hindu. The question is, what is the difference in understanding between Buddhism and Hinduism? The major difference of understanding is that for a Hindu, there is an individual soul, and that individual soul transmigrates or incarnates again and again and again and again and again. What Buddha realized was there is no individual self or soul which incarnates again and again and again and again. Now, this teaching, which is the primary basic Buddhism, has been totally lost. I know of no Buddhist teachers who discuss the fact that there is no individual soul or self which incarnates again and again and again. Now, if we go back to Advaita and there's only one substance, or to the pure physics of it, and that is that everything is made of nothingness, and everything that you experience is condensed emptiness or condensed nothingness, and that Bell's theorem that there's no cause and effect. So if there's only one substance, how could there be an individual self who has choice, who can determine to do this or that, which incarnates again and again and again? There is no separate individual self, or a true Buddhist would say there is no independent self-nature. At the risk of getting people upset at the very, very beginning of this has huge implications. If there is only one substance, then how could there be a separate individual self or soul that is different and separate from other selves or souls, which does actions for which it has to be incarnated and come back again and again and again? In I Am That I Am, I quoted Nisargadatta Maharaj as saying, reincarnation is a theory that was created for the ignorant masses. Now, this is something that if you spend some time with and just go into, it's quite astounding. If there's only one substance, how can there be this karma theory? Please understand that the purpose of the nervous system is a biological fact. The purpose of the nervous system, according to Moshe Feldenkrais, who is the founder of the Feldenkrais and Awareness Through Movement, a 4-year training on reorganization of the nervous system. The purpose of the nervous system is to organize chaos. The nervous system, for its own survival, has and creates cause and effect relationships where there are no cause and effect relationships. Historically speaking, in India, you have 99.999% of the wealth owned by 0.0001% of the population. It might be wise to have a philosophy that keeps the masses in line. Why am I a sweeper and my father was a sweeper of toilets and my mother was a sweeper of toilets, and why will my children sweep toilets and I will hand them down my broom, is because of my karma. If I'm good in this life, I'm a good sweeper, then in my next life everything will be okay. It's a way to control the masses. If there is only one substance, then how could there be an individual self with self-will? So, the other piece of Buddhism, and the central focus, is the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra basically says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. In other words, there is only one substance. Emptiness becomes form, form thins out and becomes emptiness. Emptiness becomes form, form thins out and becomes emptiness. That is an ongoing process, emptiness becoming form, form becoming emptiness, but it's still only the same substance. This particular process, where form becomes emptiness, emptiness becomes form, is in Tantric Yoga called Spanda. Spanda is defined as a throb or a pulsation. In the classic Tantric text, the Spandakarakas, Spanda meaning the divine pulsation, or divine throb. Karakas are like lessons in or discussions of. We have lessons in the divine pulsation. The emptiness becoming form, the form becoming emptiness, is a Spanda principle of Tantric Yoga, a divine pulsation. In Buddhism, there are many things we could derive or pull out. For right now, what I want to say is 3 things. 1, Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. There is only one substance. 2. There is no individual, separate soul which transmigrates or incarnates from lifetime to lifetime. Why? Because there is only one substance. Therefore, no separate individual souls or self, just one soul or substance. And finally, 3, he made a very important statement, which was, Nirvana is samsara, samsara is nirvana. Samsara means the world. Since there's one substance, he said anyone who seeks nirvana is ignorant. Anyone who seeks samsara is just as ignorant. Why? Because samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara, there is only one substance. Now, what quantum psychology did at this point was, after we got the context together, over years developed a way of trying to present the how-to, work with this inquiry process of Nisargadatta Maharaj with that context, trying to inquire into the nature of things in such a way as to get that they were illusions and not real. To do that, I wanted to start off in the first parts of the training with the development of what I called multidimensional awareness. I felt at that time that there was a lot of confusion in levels or dimensions of awareness. So, for example, I would like to do is to go over the different dimensions of awareness, and the fact is that they all are connected, but they have different functions. So before I go into them, for example, is the function of my mouth to chew up food and eat. It's the function of my right hand, say, to hold a pen in my hand or to write. It would be difficult if I just left the food in my hand for the food to be absorbed by the body, just as it would be difficult if I was going to write to put a pen in my teeth and try to write a book. So obviously the mouth and the hand are totally connected. There's only one body, there's only one piece, but each part of the body has a different function within the context of that whole. So the first dimension is the external world. The external world is the world that you see. For example, there's a car, there's a chair, there's a person in front of you, there's a couch that you're sitting on, and so on. That's the external world. Quantum psychology spends little or no time focusing on the external world, that particular dimension. The next dimension is the thinking dimension. The thinking dimension is your thoughts, I love myself, I hate myself, your belief system. All your beliefs, all your thoughts, all your ideas about yourself comprise and make up the thinking dimension. The third dimension is the emotional dimension. Anger, sadness, fear, all of those emotional states is your emotional dimension. And the next dimension is the biological dimension. The biological dimension of the body's basic mechanism, which is survival. Now, a subcontext of the body's survival mechanism, of course, is one of my teachers in India used to say that all of your life is spent focusing on 4 particular areas: eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, or having sex, or making more money so you have a better place to do it in. So, quantum psychology adds 2 other pieces to this biological dimension, which is a natural biological learning response and a natural biological merging response, kind of our urge to merge that exists within all of us. So those dimensions of awareness are all interconnected to each other. They all overlap each other. They're all one unit, and yet they have different functions. And a lot of problems arise in the world of psychology, particularly, because we confuse or overlap, or what I would call collapse, levels or dimensions of awareness. For example, in the external world, there's a chair that I'm looking at right now. Now, at the thinking level, I could think the chair is good or bad or whatever. I can then have a memory called there's an emotion because my ex-wife bought the chair and she hurt my feelings. Okay. Now, all of these are connected, but they do have different functions. When you have a confusing or a collapsing of the levels, what happens is you confuse one level for another. Let me add one other level here, which is the level of essence. Essence contains certain qualities like peace, joy, love with no object, spaciousness. Those are essential qualities. Now, most New Age spiritual systems confuse levels because they'll say things like you should always be loving, or you should always be forgiving, or you should always be this or that. The problem is that you are always loving at the level of essence. But at a thinking or emotional level, you might not be. So the problem is that we try to override and we confuse levels. In other words, I'm always feeling an incredible amount of love and forgiveness for everybody, but it doesn't mean that if somebody breaks into my house on an external level, I don't call the police or my insurance company. Okay. So there's a confusion of the levels. In psychology, there's a confusion of the levels. They confuse levels because all forms of psychology have strong suits and weak suits. For example, cognitive therapy has an extremely strong suit in the field of thinking. Their whole thing is based on a thinking and cognitive dimension. Reichian work or emotional release therapy's strong suit is emotional release and dealing with emotional states. If I go to my accountant or to an economist, they're totally focused on the external dimension. If I go to a meditation teacher, I might want to focus on essence or the dimension after essence, which is I am, of no thoughts, memory, emotions, associations, perceptions, attention, and intentions. The problem is when you try to override one dimension over another dimension. For example, I'm incredibly angry. I'm going to meditate and do my mantra. Then my anger will go away. The anger does go away until you stop meditating. Okay. So you're trying to use one dimension to overcome another dimension. And it actually never works. When I went to India in the mid-70s for 6 years, they told me that if I meditated enough and did mantra enough, not only would it handle everything, which means the emotional level, the psychological level, the relationship level, it also meant that at an external level, people told me that I would all of a sudden start getting great jobs and money would just come to me. Well, here's your confusion of levels. Meditation is good for essence, I am, and other levels. And maybe working might be a good idea as far as your external level. Another classic confusion of levels in New Age spirituality is that my belief system creates reality. Your belief system does not create external reality. Your belief system creates, or helps to create, your internal subjective experience. Your belief system does not create your external world. Let's say I have a belief that says, I'm ugly. And someone comes over to me and says, you look nice today. Now, since that doesn't fit my belief system, I might think to myself, they're just saying that, they don't really mean it, they're just making it up, it's not really true. What they're really saying is that I'm ugly and they're just trying to be nice to me. I am creating my internal subjective experience vis-a-vis my belief system, but I did not create them saying that I look nice or I don't look nice today. Okay. So beliefs or thoughts create internal subjective reality. They do not create external reality. And this is what in New Age philosophies is confusing one level for another. The number of people I know, for example, who have had jobs that are paying $7, $8, $9 an hour, but they say they're going to make a lot of money one day because they're visualizing money coming to them. Well, they're confusing the thinking dimension with visual representations with the external dimension. What you might have to do is to combine them. You might have to imagine money coming to you as you also go out and get more training, change your job, or do something like that. But if you just stay focused on the thinking dimension, it will have very, very little impact, if any, on the external world. So there's this constant confusion of levels and confusing of dimensions. All those dimensions, although they're interconnected and influence one another, they have different functions. Theoretically speaking, we can say multidimensional awareness is the ability to be aware of as many dimensions as you possibly can, or focus on any dimension at choice, or no dimension. That would be freedom. Idris Shah, the noted Sufi master, would say that you cannot be free until you gain volitional choice over where you place your attention. So, to develop multidimensional awareness, quantum psychology would say that the more dimensions of awareness that you can be aware of, the higher the subjective experience of freedom. The fewer dimensions that you can be aware of, the less the subjective experience of freedom. So in quantum psychology, our attempt is to develop multidimensional awareness in the beginning phases. Moreover, because most people's attention gets fixated or collapses down, you lose dimensions of awareness. And when you lose dimensions of awareness, your attention and awareness shrink. So rather than having a lens that's totally open and seeing everything, I'm totally fixated only on wife's sick, she's going to die, as opposed to other options. All other dimensions are collapsed and confused. You can picture it almost as a fan. If I open the fan up, I can obviously move more air and have more movement. If the fan is closed, I would get very little air on me and very little movement. In the same way, if my awareness is open to many dimensions, from external to biological to essence to I am, then obviously I'm going to get more movement and I'll feel freedom.